like you to welcome our General Evaluator, Jenny Cutler.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. The most difficult thing about this role, as always, is to get it done in the time. I really am going to do my best. Some of the things I'm going to whiz through very quickly. I'm going to start with Melissa because that was a really easy one to do. I thought Melissa did so well tonight. I thought she was absolutely wonderful. Just two little recommendations. Stand in front of the lights. Melissa stood over here almost all the time. Makes it quite difficult to see her. And one other thing that she didn't do that is a good idea, and I'm giving this out for everybody because actually it didn't matter tonight. It really is a good idea to suggest to guests just one or two sentences because sometimes guests go on for quite a long time. There were a lot of guests tonight. She was quite lucky tonight, she got away with it, but we could have missed out having a drink completely. So I'm going to say, when you do that role, always just say just one or two things. And somebody else last week said something which I also thought was jolly useful. Don't ask guests how they feel about it, because they kind of have to say, well, it's brilliant. You know, it's pointless saying that. Much better to say, why have you come along? Something like that. So that's for the role of the Sergeant at Arms. Robert, I'm going to start off with Robert. I'm going to actually leave Graham to the end. Because I want to have fun with Graham. I think because most people here know what I do for a living, I am going to give this a little bit of an image consultancy sort of undertone to the evening. I'm just going to make little comments. We do all come here to improve. And standing up here, it's not just what you say and how your voice sounds, but it's also how you look. And it's more than body language. And I think if you can think of yourself a little bit like the newsreaders, when you listen to somebody giving the news, you're not meant to be thinking, why have they got that jacket on, or why have they got that tie, or why is their shirt hanging out, or anything like that. You're meant to be listening to what you say. So basically, my advice is, just don't get it terribly wrong. You don't have to be incredibly smartly dressed, but you do look as if you've made an effort, because you are taking up people's evenings, they're standing up, they're looking at you, and if you get it wrong, they're going to be distracted. So a little thing from Robert, it's a very old-fashioned thing, but you're not meant to wear cream after November. If you could just kind of it's time your summer wardrobe got put away. So Robert is a very experienced speaker. He is very good. He does know what to say. But there's one little thing I think he and several other people here could improve on, and that's the pace. Toastmasters is a very difficult role, and I've never actually mastered it myself, but you do need that energy. You need to speak a bit faster, not like somebody's taking it down in shorthand, because sometimes actually I could have written what Robert was saying down in longhand. So sometimes it really does need speeding up. And I think, in my opinion, Robert had one really important role tonight, which I kind of wished he'd done a bit more of. And if I'd been doing that role, I hope somebody would have reminded me to do that. And that was to give Ian a really big warm-up. I was here for the humorous speech competition. I even took part in it. And the warm-up that night was the worst I have ever seen. And we all struggled a bit because the warm-up wasn't there. Particularly before the humorous speech contest. You really do need that. And I think Ian could have done with a bit more of that tonight. And I know, Ian, it's going to be easy peasy on Saturday night because you will get a brilliant warm-up. So those are the two things for Robert. Timekeeper, Gordon Jameson. Again, one little thing about shirts. When the shirts hang out, they have to be straight. The ones that go like that are meant to be tucked in. So, tuck it in. It's a shirt suit, it's not a weekend suit. Much too casual.
Tuck it in and we'll do get hangs out.
Apart from the shirt, I think I'm going to run out of time. Gordon did really, really well. Great explanation, kept it very punchy. One thing to learn about props is when you do fiddle about with these things and you've finished with them, you don't have to keep hanging on to them while you do everything else. So talk about the lights and then put them down. Somebody else did it, I can't remember who. They had their notes up and they weren't using them at all. They finished with them and they were just talking. At that point, all this waving great notes, and that really doesn't work. So notes are props, that's props. Put it down when you're not using it. And the other thing, quite a few people do this, but particularly Gordon, who's trying to do it, does stand very unevenly. He stands with his legs far too far apart. and his arms out here on one side. Something, it's not quite as bad as that, but you need to look at that video, so I hope you've paid to have it sent to you. Then you'll see exactly what happens. The topics master, Jeremy Jacob. Jeremy is so calm. He does just stand up here and take control. I thought he did really well. And I thought he chose really good topics. He did it exactly as you're supposed to. He explained the topic really well because, as most of you know, we come here to learn to listen as much as speak. And when you explain the topic, everybody has to listen. And he gave the names out at the very last second, so you had to have listened. Did it exactly the right way around. And I thought as a test for that role, he gets pretty well 10 out of 10 from me because everybody made it. Everybody got through the minutes. He didn't embarrass anybody. He didn't think of anything that made him look clever, which is what people often try to do, and make the guests look stupid, which I think is terribly unkind. I don't think you should ever do that. I just think right at the beginning, one sentence minimum must be given to explain why we do this. This is because sometimes we get caught off the hop, on the spot, with no notice, and we have to talk. That's why we keep doing table topics. And for the guests, I think some of the guests probably think, because some of them are so good, that they're rehearsed. You know, especially when Ian happens to get deep sea fishing or whatever it was, and he was in the Navy. It's not rehearsed for the guests, but I don't think that was really explained properly. Oh, and one other thing I would have done, it wasn't wrong what Jeremy did. I thought he handled it extremely well. The guest over there who didn't want to get up, I thought he was very quick and handled it really well. But my suggestion, if this ever happens again, is just gently, once only, say, I'm not going to make you, but I really would like you to come up. And if at that point they decline, give up and go on. Lana, she's not here, she's gone. The topics evaluator, I thought she was just wonderful. She actually did it pretty well to time. She only went a few seconds over, which is very, very unusual. It's a really difficult thing to do. She's got such presence for a tiny person, hasn't she? More teeth than anyone deserves. I can never call it happen. She's got such a fantastic smile. And she talked a lot about people's hands. I didn't know if you noticed that. She mentioned it 4 or 5 times. And I hope you all watched her hands. Her hands are absolutely exquisite, what she does with them. I can't do it properly now, I'm trying to think about it. But her hands are fantastic. Watch them. I think she must have been a ballet dancer. The grammarian, Tony Craddock. Oh my God. Now this, Robert, is the energy you need as a Toastmaster. Tony has that in spades. He's, actually I thought, you know, he was a Toastmaster when he was standing up. I don't think I've ever done that role, but I can't wait for you to do it. Absolutely wonderful. Kept the pace up, just picked out a few good things. I think the only, it's one of my things that I have, I think that word is too difficult. I don't think the word is supposed to be difficult, it's meant to be easy. And it's meant to be a word like eloquent or rhetoric, something to do with speeches.
Oh, very
no,
easy.
not rhetoric. Not rhetoric. I mean, to do with words and Toastmasters and speaking, and just maybe a word that we know, or a word that we use wrongly. So we learn something, but not a difficult, obscure word that just tries to make us sound clever than we are, because that's just not attractive. Rob, for Esther. I thought it was really nice the way he said ladies and gentlemen. It makes a nice change. At the beginning, the format is to say something to the person who's introduced you. So I say, Mr. Toastmaster. If it was Graham for Robert, he would say, Mr. President, and then something else. But you don't have to go through the whole lot. And as Helen said a while ago, the important thing is to sound like you mean it. So, Toastmasters, guests, you know, really, really mean it. That's the most important thing. And the odd ladies and gentlemen is really nice. He demonstrated Esther's pace with his own pace. He matched it. That's what evaluators are meant to do. Explain with how they're delivering what they're saying. Absolutely wonderful. He only didn't do this with the gestures. He just completely stood still and said her gestures were quite useful, quite expressive or something with his hands like that. Which was really odd. Smile a bit more than you frown. You do frown quite a lot. Great examples of how she can improve it all, and a really wonderful ending. Helen Fogosha. We all know Helen is so brilliant at this. I actually think if it was up to me, I'd handicap Helen. I'd handicap 3. So the first 3 votes for Helen get put in the bin. And if she still wins, well, we handicap her by 5. If she still wins. It's just not fair. There ought to be a second person if Helen wins.
I did have a handicap tonight. Just trying to manage a camera as well.
You can do it, you can do it. Actually, the only funny thing that time for things, one really has to scratch around with Helen to find something. She normally does smile a lot, but she kept us waiting today till nearly the middle before she did her beam. And then suddenly I thought, oh, I'm right. She hadn't smiled up until that point. And then she got better and better. Close was absolutely wonderful, even more smiling. George for Trudy, God, how much time have I got? Great opening, great explanation. It takes an advanced speaker to evaluate one, and I thought actually he was jolly well qualified to do this. I think he's probably done that speech himself. He seemed to know so much about it. He was very sincere. I think I'm going to be picky and grammarian on George. I think to say roller coaster would have been much better than a dramatic meal. I don't know how you can have a dramatic meal in that sense at all. And the other thing he did that we were encouraged not to do is he started talking to Trudy an awful lot. And evaluation is meant to be for everybody, not just the person. So not all that chatting over there with Trudy. Adrian for Ian. Adrian is another person I'm one of his fans, he knows this. I think Adrian's wonderful. He's so commanding, he stands in the middle, and his use of the English language is absolutely wonderful. There was a little bit in this, I hope this person won't take it the wrong way, but he kind of turned into Brian Sewell in the middle. Don't do this Brian Sewell thing. Adrian is also known to be very heavy-handed with his evaluations, and I think he's probably a very good judge of deciding whatever it is he's going to tell Thingy in the bar afterwards. Well done, Adrian. And it was absolutely brilliant end. A couple more seconds for Graham.
Yes.
I came in a bit late. I'm not going to apologise for why that happened, because you're not supposed to apologise. And I thought, oh, Butlins, we're having another themed evening.